An interesting discovery was made during the World War II in 1942. A forest guard named Hari discovered a lake in a remote valley of the Himalayas at an altitude of 3.1 miles. But this was not the mysterious part. He was shocked when he came close and looked at this small lake with crystal clear clarity, because he had seen a skeleton at the bottom of the 313-feet pond. Then to different places he looked, then he saw another one and then another one. There were dozens around. At first he couldn't understand what it belonged to, but he soon realized that the lake was filled with human skeletons. He immediately went down and reported the situation to his superiors. The incident was starting to take on a mysterious aspect. How had these bodies ended up in this remote mountain lake where no one was around? While researching this topic, I was pushing the limits of my mind and was shocked. You will probably experience something similar after what I'm about to tell you. A discovery was made. A forest guard named Hari discovered a lake in a remote valley of the Himalayas at an altitude of 3.1 miles. But the mystery is the mystery of these skeletons in the Himalayas. Uttarakhand, India. There is a lake at the top of the Himalayan mountains in northern India. This lake remains frozen for most of the year, but when summer comes and the waters start to recede, a shocking landscape emerges. Not only inside the lake, but also around it, thousands of human bones are scattered. Because of these skeletons that emerge with the melting of the ice, this place has been named the Path of Skeletons. This place is often visited by tourists, and some of them collect these skeletons they find and walk over them. But everything is not just about these skeletons being found or the possibility of them being thrown here. And that's exactly where the great mystery begins. Who these people who died here were, where they came from, and why they came here has been the subject of research for years. Although the discovery began in 1942, the story actually dates back much further. After an initial simple research, it was thought that this was a military discovery. A group of Japanese soldiers were thought to have wanted to secretly pass through the mountains, and somehow they were destroyed at this point. But this needed to be proven. Therefore, more detailed research began to be conducted. A group of anthropologists reached Lake Brokun and conducted research. What they saw when they looked back at the results after the research deeply shook them, because nearly 300 human skeletons were found scattered in the area. There were children as well as adults. Some of the skulls had fractures. It was as if they had been hit on the head with something, or something had fallen on them. Radiocarbon tests were conducted by Oxford University to determine the ages of the skeletons found. They were shocked for the second time when the results came in, because some of the skeletons dated back 1,200 years to the 850s. The idea that they may have died from an epidemic came to mind. The idea that those who lost their lives after a major epidemic were brought and left in this secluded place. But examination showed that they were quite healthy before they died. Then it was thought that a dispute that broke out among them ended many of them. But, as you will see in a moment, this possibility will probably not reflect the truth. It was as if something else had happened to them. The real question that needs to be asked at this point is this: how did these skeletons, which are over 1,000 years old, get there? Things were a bit strange, because this was an extremely remote and isolated place, days away from any settlement. On top of the mountains, a place not even on the trade route. Then there was a development. The local people there talked about an event from the past. About an event during a journey that lasted for days to worship at the temple of the goddess named Nanda Devi Jat. During this journey, there was also a king passing through the Himalayan peaks. The king had brought dancers with him to prevent this long journey from becoming boring. But this action had greatly angered the goddess. In response, she rained down giant stones on them and inflicted severe punishment, and all of them were condemned to death in that region. When looking at the injuries on the skeletons, what happened largely matched the story. But this Indian myth, no matter how beautiful a story it was, seemed illogical. What made sense was that a travel group got caught in a severe storm with large hailstones falling and died. This seemed like an acceptable explanation, but something came up that would deepen the mystery even more. 76 different skeletons were collected from the region for examination. Some of these had injuries unrelated to natural conditions. In addition, there was a difference of about 250 years between the ages of some skeletons. It's as if someone brought them there, as if it was a tradition and just left them. The strange thing was that some of the 76 different skeletons dated back to the 1700s. So, over a 1,200-year period, different people had lost their lives there or had been brought there at different times. The more they researched, the more the mystery deepened. It was becoming an insoluble situation. In fact, some of the people found were from South Asia, and a small portion had inexplicably come from the Greece region. What on earth was this really? Every clue found pushes us to ask more questions, and each answer was giving birth to a new question. Was this place like the forests in Japan where mass suicides were committed? But if that were the case, there shouldn't have been any injuries. Besides, the child skeletons found clearly showed that such an assumption was not the case. The only logical thing is that some gangs in the region somehow incapacitate and loot people who are traveling or passing nearby and bring them to this secluded place to be untraceable. But if we look at the time scale, the gangs would have had to do the same thing for centuries. No matter how we look at it, no theory fully aligns with the truth. In my opinion, at least one of the data obtained must be incorrect. For example, the time scales that emerge after the radiocarbon test of the deceased. If there wasn't a difference of hundreds of years between the deceased, in other words, if these events happened within a certain time frame, the cause of the deaths could somehow be linked to natural events, to a massacre where they brought their dead here and buried them, or something similar to this. This story could have concluded if that were true, but sadly, it isn't. More research needs to be done to find out what happened to them. Who knows, maybe one day we can learn their true story. All we know for now is that they will remain a mystery in the Himalayas. Even though we can't shed light on this mystery for now, you've heard the story. Of course, you can help me in the comments about what happened. You can like this video and share it for more people to reach. I'm NYGMA. See you later.